What's going on, guys? It's the Coaster Battleman here, bringing you a pretty cool coaster countdown, the top 10 roller coasters at Carowinds. And I just got to visit this park for 2 days, and I'm heading back for a few more rides on Fury before I'm heading back home. So, Carowinds, very amazing park, and definitely a decent coaster collection. I feel like they could use some improvements with their top 5 and their top 10 as well. But for what they have some pretty good stuff, especially like since 2010 they've been like a lot better of a Cedar Fair park. But let's move on to number 10. We have Ricochet. And before I get started with the rest of the video, these are going to be all the coasters I've ridden, so yeah. We have Ricochet at number 10. So, Ricochet, it was a Wild Mouse coaster, and I would compare it to the Dark Knight at Six Flags Great America, but Ricochet was even worse than Dark Knight because it had the same amount of jerkiness, plus there was no theming. Like Dark Knight, at least he had some theming, but Ricochet was that was just one of the worst coasters I've ever ridden. Not really that fun of a ride because of the jerkiness. And I thought it would be a solid Wild Mouse, but definitely a disappointment. Number 9, we have Carolina Gold Rusher, and this is the mine train at Carowinds, and it just kind of meanders around the course. I didn't really scream or do any of that thrilling stuff or yelling or woohooing. But Carolina Gold Rusher, it was just kind of it just felt like a kid's coaster that was super long because it kind of meandered around the course and it wasn't really thrilling at all. It was just like a ride to get some wind in your face on, but not really that much. Number 8 is Vortex, and now we're starting to get into thrilling coasters, and Vortex, I rode it twice, once on day 1, another time on day 2, and the day 1 ride, the first drop in the vertical loop were very fun, but then after that it was just quite a bit of headbanging, and the second time I rode it was just non-stop headbanging. Maybe it's just the way I was standing on it, but it was still kind of, I thought it would be decent, but it was a disappointment again. Just like Apocalypse at Six Flags America is a pretty bad stand-up. Number 7, we have Nighthawk, and a lot of coaster enthusiasts cannot stand Nighthawk, and then some say it'll be okay, but Nighthawk, I'm kind of like in that in-between range. It's a flying coaster, which is pretty cool, and the first drop is okay, but then after that, it's just a very shaky ride. That's kind of my main problem with Nighthawk. If it was almost as smooth as Firehawk or on the level of smoothness as Batwing, it would be an awesome ride and definitely in the top 5 easily, maybe at the number 4 spot. But Nighthawk was just kind of, it was pretty cool with the flying coaster, but I couldn't really get on it really at all. I just rode it once because of the ridiculous line for it. And the capacity for this ride is pretty bad, so only waiting for it as a station wait is probably the way to go. Riding it early in the day or late at night. So number 6, we have Hurler, and Hurler is the only wooden coaster at Carowinds besides Woodstock Express, but the only thrilling wooden coaster, and it was just kind of, it was not bad. In the front row, I thought it was pretty decent. It had a pretty solid drop, some nice turns, and you had the wind in your face. It was pretty good. I didn't think it was a rough ride or nothing, but I thought it was pretty decent. Moving on, we have number 5, which is Flying Cobras, which is the Vekoma Boomerang at Carowinds. And this ride is actually not bad. I thought it was a pretty good boomerang, and a lot of coaster enthusiasts are boomerang haters, but I think boomerangs are probably like a 6 to 7 out of 10 coaster, but they are clones, so That's kind of the unfortunate thing with Flying Cobras, is that it's cloned so many times, but they have the vest restraints on it, so it's pretty enjoyable with the vest restraints. The Cobra roll wasn't really that great at all, but the vertical loop had some amazing G-force and intensity, and the drops as well were pretty fun, as well as the station flyby. So probably about 75% of this ride was very enjoyable and super fun, but then the other quarter of it, the Cobra roll, was not that great. Number 4 is Carolina Cyclone, and this is your classic aerodynamics coaster, the first to go upside down 4 times. And I'm kind of surprised by how much I enjoyed this coaster. I rode it in the second to last row both times in the same seat. I kind of wanted to try it out in the front, but Carolina Cyclone was overall a pretty cool aerodynamics coaster. I feel like it was a bit better than the Demon. The double corkscrew was pretty solid, the vertical loops were good, and then the drop was kind of small. But overall, I thought it wasn't too bad. I've been on worse aero loopers like Anaconda at King's Dominion, but that was kind of like an in-between. It wasn't as good as Loch Ness Monster, but it wasn't a horrible aero looper like Corkscrew or Anaconda or something like that. And now we're getting into the top 3. You probably already know what the top 3 is, but number 3 is Afterburn. This is by far my favorite B&M invert. Banshee was definitely a lot shakier, in my opinion, than Afterburn. And Afterburn, I've ridden it in many different rows with the 2 different trains. And overall, I rode this over 10 times. And, awesome. Afterburn, super fun, great inversions, and there is a part of the ride where there's mist flying above the train and stuff, or it's below the train and then spraying all over you. It's pretty cool. Pretty nice way to cool off, and the inversions are just awesome. The corkscrew at the end is probably the worst inversion on there, but every inversion is just intense and powerful, and it's definitely a very enjoyable coaster and super fun. Number 2 is Intimidator, and this is the B&M Hypercoaster at Carowinds, and I probably got easily over 10 rides, probably about 15 to 20 rides on Intimidator, and I've had many different experiences on there. Some I got stapled, some I got tons of airtime, and some were average. Like getting stapled even, I still got decent airtime, but when you aren't really stapled at all, the airtime is relentless and strong. The float airtime is unbelievable on Intimidator, and it's a bit smoother than Diamondback as well. So Intimidator, definitely my favorite B&M Hyper. Super fun ride, definitely lives up to the hype. Despite the trim brakes that were on there, I didn't really mind them. And you guys already know what number 1 is. It's Fury 325. It's my new number 1 coaster. Kind of a spoiler alert right there. But Fury 325, awesome coaster. Unbelievable. Just starting with the first drop and then going through some insane turns, crossing between North and South Carolina. You have an awesome treble clef turnaround, and that at the top, at its peak, gets some pretty nice airtime, and you fly under one of the bridges to get to the main entrance area of Carowinds, and there's some pretty nice airtime on this coaster as well. It was a bit rattly, a bit rougher than I thought. It was a bit rattly, but I didn't really mind it. That ride was just flying at 95 miles per hour. Awesome ride. Unbelievable. There wasn't really anything wrong about this ride. And the ride time was awesome. No mid-course brake run, unlike Intimidator. It was just an awesome experience. Very fun. On the first day when I came to Carowinds, I rode it 21 times, which I've never ridden a coaster that many times in one day because Six Flags Great America, the lines get really long there, and yeah. But 21 rides on Fury 325, such an awesome coaster. I've ridden it in many different seats in rows 1 through 8. just an awesome coaster. Definitely the best coaster in Carowinds, and in my opinion, the best coaster in the world. I just have to try out Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point and see if that can beat out Fury as my number one. But thank you guys so much for watching, and my next video will be the top 10 coasters at King's Dominion, and stay tuned for future videos after that. See ya.